On to today's webinar to discuss automating content conversion in the DITA Migrate cloud conversion service. Some of you may have joined us in previous webinars to discuss things FrameMaker's DITA conversion. Today we'll be actually talking specifically about RoboHelp to DITA, and we'll show you how the Migrate service can be used to good effect to convert your content in that way. Just let me, before we get into the meat of things, let me just talk about some general introductions and housekeeping issues. My name is Les Burnham. I'm CEO of Stilo, and I'm based in the UK. And I'm today by Helen Sentinese, our Conversion Services Manager, who's based in our Ottawa office, along with Patrick Baker, who heads up our Development and Professional Services, again based in the Ottawa office. Behind the scenes, there's Helen Owens, our Marketing Manager, helping to facilitate proceedings. And just say that all attendees today will be actually will be muted. Unfortunately, it's always a thing to not to be able to have interactive sessions, but we're going to have something like 40 to 50 people attending today, so it's not possible to keep the lines open because of interference. But if questions occur to you as we go through the agenda, then please submit those questions using the chat feature to Helen Owens if you could. And Helen will essentially sort of compile those, and we'll address them at the end in a Q&A session. Just to mention, we'll run a brief poll at the end of the session, and if you could just spend a couple of minutes doing it before you sign out, that would be much appreciated. And finally, we will be recording today's webinar, and hopefully we'll be making it available to us after the meeting. Just to continue with the introductions, I'll introduce the company Stilo. We're actually listed on the London Stock Exchange. And we've got over 20 years experience in the development of XML and HTML content conversion technologies and solutions. Some of you know us from as being developers of OmniMark, which is the content processing tool used to build high-performance content processing applications. It was used in the early days of HTML, and we've continually enhanced it. Version 10 has just been released, in fact, last February of this year, and it's used to process HTML and XML content. It's used by organizations including Airbus, Boeing, Honeywell, Walters Kluwer, Japan Patent Office, many organizations across a range of industry sectors. And it was as a consequence of the experience that we had in some of the world's toughest, I would say, some of the world's toughest content processing applications, and actually sort of further developing our OmniMark tool, that led us to the development of Migrate some 4 to 5 years ago now. 5 years ago maybe it was conceived, 4 years ago it's been under development. I'm very pleased to say it's doing very nicely in the market, and we have customers of the service that include the likes of IBM, Schlumberger, Cisco, Micron, WebTrends, you see GlobalFoundries, ST Micros, large companies with large conversion requirements, companies with small conversion requirements. The solution is scalable and applicable across all industry sectors. And today we're going to be talking about the Migrate service. The agenda is agenda that may be recognizable to some of you from previous webinars if you've attended them. I'll talk about some general content conversion issues and provide you with an overview of Migrate before handing over to Helen, who will run through the demo of the RoboHelp to DITA service. And then I'll just talk about a couple of slides on the engagement and pricing model. I'll add a couple of slides which summarize some evaluation results that IBM recently presented. And we'll open the session up for questions and answers at the end. So let's move quickly on and make, I guess, what as a statement should be obvious or will be obvious to many of you if you've been experienced in content conversion, that it's not straightforward. And there's a bullet in this. You know, there's always something about content that makes things difficult, and it's always difficult to actually assess the amount of time it's going to take to convert content. Any conversion project will include a conversion piece with some pre-conversion prep and some post-conversion cleanup associated with it. how effective your conversion technology is will dramatically affect the amount of manual effort that's required in the whole time. So there's a big difference if your technology is 80% effective, only 5% effective, you have a fourfold increase in the actual sort of amount of clean time that could be required in a project, and that might be acceptable if you're just if you're doing in general conversion projects. If you're dealing with a few hundred pages of content, that might be quite acceptable if you've got the manual resources and the time to actually do that sort of tidy up work. But as volumes increase, and you really need typically scalable solutions, we're going to automate as much of this process as possible. And there are dependencies for success as well in any conversion project, and a lot of it could depend upon the skills and experience of team members. For many people, conversion projects, my first time people have actually had exposure to those conversion projects, and quite understandably be on a learning curve as they embark on this route. I think it's in situations like that where it's important to be supported by an experienced conversion partner with the appropriate skill sets and experience who can help you out and work you through these projects. There's some obvious statements to be made about resources being available in terms of budgets and in terms of people. Any project depends upon that, but particularly in conversion projects, I find that often appropriate funding isn't given over to this sort of thing because it's eaten into by other budgets. Maybe CMS budgets eat into it, that sort of thing. And conversion typically often gets done as a background task as well as day-to-day sort of production requirements take over. So as well in resources, it's a matter of it's also a matter of really understanding if they're available or not to the project. But overridingly, one of the big determinants of a project success will be the quality and consistency of your source content in the first place. And again, this might be sort of saying the obvious, but I think it's worth saying it nevertheless. You don't really know about the quality of your content until you start getting into the project. What you think you have might not be what you actually have by way of standards in your organization. So you learn as you go along. And so, but one thing you can be quite sure of in this is that at these stages you stay involved. Some people would say, well, I don't want to get involved. I haven't got the skills. I want to throw this over the wall. I'll throw it over the fence to someone else to do, and in some sort of outsourcing way. But actually, as an SME, as a subject matter expert, you understand your content. You understand where it needs to be mapped to, and you need to stay involved in the process, no matter how enthusiastic you may or may not feel about that. And this can become quite maybe frustrating at times to SMEs, and especially in the sort of when you're specifying conversion rules, and you might be back and forth with your conversion partner, and if that conversion partner is typically in some different time zone or offshore or whatever, that can become really quite frustrating and time-consuming. So it's really important to understand that you need to stay involved. You need to have the resources to stay involved at all times. The challenge that we see in with conversion and when you look at conversion solutions and alternatives is that you want to reduce time and lower costs and at the same time ensure quality. But how do you do that? So we say you should look towards optimizing automation as much as possible. But then realizing that there are always going to be exceptions when you're pushing documents through, when you're pushing content through, and it's a matter of how you're going to best process those exceptions that's going to determine how long this process takes, and therefore how much it's cost. On top of all of that, to recognize that SMEs do need to be involved, how can you actually involve them most productively? And it's this sort of background that we set out actually developing Migrate as a service. To explain very briefly what we provide. It's essentially when we're looking at we can upload different types, document types, up to a unique portal. Today we're going to be talking about RoboHelp, but this is just relevant for FrameMaker or Word or InDesign files as well. We upload files to a unique portal, a custom portal, which is pre-configured with content rules tailored to your specific requirements. And we can tailor conversion pipelines really quite quickly. The thing about that is we can get to really quite a high level of automation, looking at some fairly complex transformations in what we do, and therefore reducing the amount of time it takes to process content. So particularly, we put these tailored conversion pipelines in place. Would upload documents, analyze them, analyzed by the system, and the system would essentially sort of indicate how much it's going to cost, how many what we call conversion credits is it going to cost to process. The customer basically presses a button, says yes or no, and the documents are converted in real time. And you'll see how quickly this can actually happen. And we say that when these pipelines are set up, what we find is that the 80-20 rule applies. That majority of documents will go through these pre-configured pipelines, but there will always be exceptions. And to process these exceptions, SMEs can use a rules editor that we've actually developed, which is available online, so that you don't have to be a programmer or a developer to use this, and you can tweak essentially the conversion rules that are in place, and you can steer and guide those exceptional documents through the system, and clone new rules if needs be. So as the system is used more fully and more frequently, as new conditions are recognized, as new rule sets are put in place, the automation improves iteratively as the knowledge of your own content increases. So we get better and better as we go along. And essentially, the system is being online, and means that essentially it's self-paced. You can use this in your own good time. You can conversions, say sort of a just-in-time sort of way. A few documents here, a few documents there, as and when time allows. And because it's based around a portal, it's available to geographically dispersed teams 24/7. And in the background all of the time, it's actually supported by Stilo under the if you like. So you're operating this system. The SMEs are actually operating this system. You're guiding your conversions through. But if you've got problems, we're sitting there in the background available to support you. And we provide that service very comprehensively as well. That's really a very quick overview of the system. What we actually do is, in all cases as well, we actually deliver very high quality DITA. We can go to standard DITA 1.1, 1.2, where you can go to specialized DITA and tailor those pipelines accordingly, and save you a lot of time in the process of when you're converting your content. I think the key point to really make is that valid DITA outputs are actually sort of guaranteed every time, because we have schema-based validation, and because we do know that every time your DITA will be valid. So that's really a very brief overview of the system. What I'd like to do now is just move into the demonstration and assign control to Helen. And so if you bear with me. Hopefully Helen will be able to pick this up from here.
So sharing my desktop now, so hopefully everybody can see it. If you can see the desktop, what you'll be looking at is the page in the Migrate portal that you would see when you first log into your portal. It's a listing of the various documents that you've uploaded to your portal so far. So it's able to get the documents in there. We can upload them from the file system. We'll go in and pick one now. We'll choose this one. And at that point we can tell the system which type of document we're going to upload if we want to. We can say this is going to be a RoboHelp. You might have various different importers on your portal, or you may have just the one. So you can specify, or you can let the portal figure it out based on the file extension. Upload, and uploads it to the portal, and at the same time, it analyzes the document. It's done that very quickly. It finds out a bit of information about it, makes it figure out things like how many characters there are in it, and whether there are any issues that we should be aware of. So it has finished analyzing. It tells us that it's going to cost us 34 of our prepaid conversion credits. So let's go and take a look at what the analysis has told us. So 700 credits. So apparently this portal is configured to charge 2 credits for some characters. That wouldn't be necessarily typical, but it can be configured in any way that's required. So at point, we can go ahead and we can say, okay, 34 credits is not bad. We'll take that. Go ahead and we'll accept the charges. Okay, so accept 34. Our total remaining credits have been reduced by 34, and this is turned black. Now from here in, we can go ahead and we can assign rules, and we can convert and download. We can go back and modify the rules, convert again, download again, as many times as we want to or need to, until we get out that we're satisfied with, and it's never going to cost us any more than this number of credits. So we get an opportunity to refine the conversion as much as is required. So at this point then, the next step would be to assign it some rules. So when at a portal, we will take your sample documents and we will put together a default rule set based as comprehensively as we can on the rules that you give us, so that we can expect to get good out, and so far your input tends to be consistent. So we've chosen our default rule set, and we'll assign a target. We have one or more targets. In this case, into regular DITA 1.1. As pointed out, we could have gone to DITA 1.2, but we picked a 1.1 for this demo because, well, for 2 reasons. One is this particular document doesn't really take advantage of any of the 1.2 features, and the other reason is that Metal is configured better for showing output in DITA 1.1 than 1.2. So that's why I did that. So because we have some pretty good default rules in place, we can go ahead and hit convert. It will convert. Done on up analysis, besides finding out information about the document, we've also created from the input an immediate XML file that has retained important information about the source, style information, conditional text, attributes, and things like that. So that's all there, and it's kept track of the RoboHelp project file, so that will help us create the DITA map in the right order. So with those things, the rules have that XML format and the DITA 1.1 schema, things together are working to convert our document. And as you can see, it's already converted. If you look at the output, I would just like to show you the input and what it's like, so we can compare the two. Now, those of you who have sat in on some of our, maybe one of our FrameMaker to DITA demonstrations, you'll recognize maybe the content of some of this, but this is a FrameMaker web help, or some RoboHelp web help document. So same content, different source though. So as you see, this is what we've got. So the usual things that you'll see, we've got chapter titles, and we've got lists, and got, levels of headings. Tables. This is kind of a cool table which shows us the different typographical conventions that are used in the document. And I like that out because we'll come back and compare that with the output shortly. There's no text in here as well. I don't think you can pick that out in the published version, but we have put some conditional text in on purpose. We've got some nested lists. What we'll find as well, we put on purpose some of the typical issues that you find when you're converting things that weren't authored with the idea in mind that this is going to go to DITA someday. So there are some things that occasionally you will see. So you will see, for example, a lot of conversions rely very heavily on style names for conversion, and it does too, but we can use some things. So when we go to the rules editor, we'll see that these things actually have the same style name. We find other ways of converting them to different outputs, because these need to be step choices and these need to be sub-steps. Sometimes style alone isn't going to be enough for a conversion. One of the issues that we'll look at. Another issue that is very commonplace is that we will find things that are in tables. They've been put in tables just for display purposes and really don't belong in tables in DITA. So in this case, this table really needs to be a warning or a note of type warning, and need to get rid of the table markup. So that's the thing. Another thing that we will find too is people have written tasks that have more than one procedure in them, and that is not supported in DITA. So we have to find a way to deal with this. We send it back to the author and say, could you please rewrite this? Or we could let it go through and fix it up on output. But there are ways of dealing with it that make that a little bit easier. So we'll get into some of that as well. Often see step action tables. So again, we have to be able to strip out the table markup. And we'll scroll right down to the bottom, and we can see that we have another table. This can be a definition list. We have a task that has 3 levels of steps, and this is not always handled correctly in automated conversions, and we'll show how that can happen as well. So let's have a quick look at the input. Let's have a quick look at the output now that we've just converted. Hit download, and it packages it up for us. Okay, so here, and let's open up in X-Men. We'll have a look. We'll start with looking at open up the DITA map. See that we've got a DITA map out. We put in one file. We've got multiple files coming out with files generated from the content of the file. Just actually close that file that we had opened before. And here we go. All right, let's have a look at what we've got in the output. As you can see, nice hierarchical DITA map. And let's have a look at our table. So as you can see, the table was handled correctly. It's come out as a table as it went in. However, we didn't make this bold. Clear should be bold, and it was bold in the input. So that's one thing we've noticed that we need to go back and fix in a rule. So we will we'll show now how some of these things, in fact, get processed correctly. Let's start installing Quick Trace. So we have the case where we wanted to make sure that our steps and our sub-steps were treated correctly, and do appear to have been. So let's have a look at it in plain text. So what step commands, and inside that step choice in the first instance, and then on we have sub-step. So those have been handled correctly. Let's have a look at our table. Again, this was a warning in a table. Now, the table mark has been removed, and you can see that it's been put as a note of type caution. Now, the multiple steps with the same task. So actually broken it up. So we've got two that aren't tables. And oh, you know what I've done? Converted the wrong one. That's okay. I'll show you how we do that. It isn't done in this one, but we'll show it having been done. And here's a definition list from a table, so that has been handled correctly as well. So now I have a couple of things to show you in the rules editor. So let's go back here to our documents, and we found a couple of things in the output that weren't quite what we wanted. So I'm going to open up the rules editor for this document because you can see this rule has an asterisk beside it. And I'll show you why that is. What's happening is we're taking the L and we're taking the rules and we're putting it together and generating a view of the input document, the flattened XML. We're going to do that left-hand side over here. Show us what our document looks like. It's got a little bit of formatting just so that we can easily pick out the different parts of the document. We can see what's a heading, what's a list, and so on. You'll see that some pieces of text have these gray bars beside them. That's just telling me that these things haven't been annotated by any of our rules. That's typically okay with a table, for example. It'll just normally be handled as a table, and we saw that that table did come out as a table. If it's a particular paragraph that we don't need anything special done with, that's okay too. But we don't want to be seeing gray bars beside headings or bullet points, for example. If we see that, we may know that we want to add a rule for that. So we see that in some parts, some pieces of text have a strike through them. That's because those have been marked for deletion. Those, in this case, are list markers, and we've told the system to delete those because they'll be generated again on output. Some conditional text here. We've highlighted that in yellow. We can tell what's conditional. And you can see that when we select a piece of text to green in the left-hand pane, and it shows us on the right-hand pane in the Elements tab some information about it. In this case, because it's conditional text, it shows us, among other things, what the condition is that's on that. We use that condition attribute to set a rule if we want. It also tells us which rule has applied and which annotation has been applied to it as a result of that rule. again, let's do this one. We'll see this has been annotated by Rule 10. So let's open up Rule 10. You can see that this rule has been created simply. The rule has two parts, basically. It's got a test and an annotation. And in this case, the test is very simply the name of the paragraph style that's applied to it. So when the style matches this style name, we annotate it as title topic 0, being the nesting level in the DITA map. So 0 being outermost, and this is how we create a hierarchical DITA map. We provide nesting level right here in the rule. So that's that one put together. If we want to see where that rule applies, we find the button, and anywhere that rule has matched, we'll have the green bars now in the left-hand pane. Now, you can see that these rules are all shared rules. That means that these rules can be used again for any document that you choose to apply this rule set to. This has an unshared rule that applies only to this document as well, and that's what the asterisk was showing us in the other pane. Let's have a look at this rule. This is the rule that actually handles the problem of what to do with two tasks essentially in the same topic. So what it does is it inserts a task title and creates a task above the paragraph that's been annotated. And we picked on the pieces of text and we've marked by their content. So this rule really is only going to apply to this one document. And that's why we've made the rule document specific. So that's what's an unshared rule. And let's go back to the shared rules. Let's look at another rule that perhaps might be a bit sorted by name. So step choices and substeps. Here's our step rule, our step choice rule, and said that if the style matches P substep and content starts with bullet, they're going to become a step choice. Find where that one matches. And there we have it matching the list items that have a bullet point. As you can see, their style is substep. Ones are styled substep as well. That's where a simple to element matching wouldn't have worked. So let's see what rule matched this one. So step. Rule 61. Oh, I missed, there we are. There we go, and the find button is still on, so it's matched it. And so if the style matches substep and the content does not start with a bullet, it's going to be a step ordered command level 2. So the system has to make that a substep if it's inside a step already. If it were not inside a step, it would become a step. If it's where steps are not allowed or substeps are not allowed, it would become an ordered list item. An example of a little bit more complicated rule. Let's have a look at topic types. In some cases, the topic type is not easy to determine based only on style as well. In this case, we've used content as well. We've used a regular expression to match. So we've said if the heading, if its style is heading 3 with all stuff, It matches this regular expression. In other words, if it starts with a wording in ing, we're going to make it a topic, a tech topic. Sometimes it might be, for some people, how to. You might just be able to match the content. If the content starts with how to, it's going to be a task. So there's lots of ways that you can use content to test. But let's actually now and make the rule and make that text bold in our table. This is the kind of rule that you will most often make. So we highlighted the text that we want. We'll do. And what happens now is we get this edit box pop-up that's been populated with things about that piece of text that we can use to create a rule. So it's already told us what the style is, and it's got some properties of the style as well that we use or we can get rid of according to what we need. If we might be things that are norm style and not bold that we want to match, well then we're going to do that. In this case, we need the bold property. We don't want things that are bold to match. So, and we apply it to a paragraph, because this is a paragraph. And we're going to say, I'm going to call it bold. Going to that rule. Now, that's a very straightforward rule to make. There are all kinds of other types of tests that you can use to get sophisticated. So let's imagine we were making a test here. We could, for example, make a new group of tests. So we have some Boolean logic. We can do all of, some of. We can make a whole list. We've seen content tests already. We've seen property tests. To make an attribute test, so we can use, for example, the condition attribute to set a test. We can annotation test and see if a piece of text has already been annotated. So there's a number of different ways we can do it. We can have a nested groups of tests as we need, so we can get quite fancy. We can use, as you saw, for a content test, we can use other expressions to match patterns. So you can get very sophisticated. However, the majority of the rules that you write are pretty straightforward. Now go ahead and let's convert this and our changes. So while it's doing that, it doesn't take very long, but nevertheless, let's have a quick look at what else you can do with this. As I said, give you a default rule set to begin with. You may find that you want to actually create another rule set and modify it for a different family of documents. So you can simply go in here to your rule sets page, and you can own your rule set. We'll give it a new name. I like to make a backup rule set anyway, just to be on the safe side in case I do something really wrong. Now go ahead and use this rule set and apply documents just the same as the other rule sets and modify it and just up to a whole other family of documents to my heart's content. This is converted. Let's download it. And now I haven't done anything wrong. This should all come out the way we want it. There we go, and now we have our bold text showing up as a result of that simple little rule. And let's look at our multiple steps within the task problem. So here's the issue 2 topic, and so this is the little introduction part of it. The next thing was a title that said chain removal and installation. That's become a nav title, or sorry, a topic head. And here we have 2 new topic titles, just called an inserted task title. And so each of these sets of steps in here, we've made the first paragraph context, and these all become steps. Here's a look. Now, I mean, this is obviously not the complete solution. Somebody is still going to have to go in here and give this a proper title and change the DITA map to point to it correctly. But that is so much less work than actually reauthoring the whole thing. And it's done quite easily. So you don't have to go back and reauthor the whole input. And though you do have to make some changes on the output, it's much, much easier than having to go in and put in all the step tags and so on. You just have to deal with the title. So you can see that it's really that simple to make changes and that quick to see the results of it. That's what we've got there. Now, it is essentially what I wanted to show. So I think that at this point, it will be the best thing for me to pass control back over to Les. Sorry, just slipped away from me there.
I don't seem to be able to pick up the sharing at this point.
It's going now, Les.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, good, I've got it now. Okay, let me just pick up from where we left off before. Thanks for that, Helen. Just very briefly about the engagement model. The way in which we can get you up and running with your own portal is really quite quick. We typically look at some sample documents for analysis. We run them through the Migrate service and then review the output with you by way of some sort of WebEx session and confirm your tailoring requirements. And that doesn't take too long. We can quickly get to that point. And then essentially we configure a unique portal for each individual customer. The important thing is, as you saw there, that the key to pushing these documents through is by effective use of the rules editor. It doesn't take too long before technical authors and subject matter experts can become quite proficient with that. Typically, we have an online session that takes place, maybe lasting for an hour or so. This is right at the beginning when we hand over your portal, and there might be some toing and froing that week, and perhaps with a follow-up session the following week. But very quickly, people can get up and running with the rules editor. As you saw there, it can be used at different levels of sophistication, so you can do quite simplistic rules tweaking or modification, and you can get into almost programmatic exception handling if you want to as well. So that appeals to people at all different levels. And behind the scenes, as I mentioned earlier, we have ongoing account management and support. The development team is always sitting there in the background, ready to help out if needs be. The pricing model basically sort of comprises three elements. There's this initial setup and tailoring services, which is a per DM rate. We have per user, an annual subscription rate, a fairly small annual subscription charge. And then, as I mentioned before, you purchase conversion credits. So it's essentially sort of essentially a pay-as-you-go service that we provide. The main point being is that it doesn't involve a large capital outlay at the beginning. You can get up and running fairly quickly, and the whole thing is scalable. And if you for smaller projects as well, where really you might just want to do a few hundred rather than a few thousand or 2,000 of pages, there's a operated option available where we would run a service on your behalf and provide essentially an outsourced service, but runs contrary really to the benefits that this provides. But we can do that if needs be. It's interesting that we recently did a presentation with IBM just a few weeks ago. We presented with IBM at the CMS DITA North America conference, and what I've found interesting, IBM were an early customer of the Migrate service, and we had the whole service actually assessed by their central ID tools team, and we went into production with IBM last year. It was actually for FrameMaker to do the conversions, but I think their results still sort of illustrate some important points that I'd like to bring out here. And I borrowed this slide and the next slide from the IBM presentation that was made at the conference last month, and which is, by the way, generally available on our website now as well. But this was an important point to bring, I think. This was a really IBM look at different methods of conversion. So they had traditional vendors, which would be a traditional outsourced service. They had done their own DIY manual approach, and they used the Stilo service. And what you hear is that they were still, when using the Stilo service, they were still actually putting pre-conversion prep work in place. But once they'd done that, they were converting content very, very quickly. And in cases, they found that they had no post-conversion cleanup to do whatsoever. They were pushing very large documents through very, very cleanly. And that was really because we managed to achieve a very, very high level of automation in those the pipelines that we created, and because they could use the rules editor to push things through. And so for them, it was really quite an improvement on where they'd been before, and recommending this internally now elsewhere within IBM as a method of conversion. Another way of looking at it, and this was again the IBM slide, not ours, was in comparing sort of the pros and cons of various approaches to conversion. And you'll see that you've got the self-serve option, the migrate option in the middle of those three columns. I think it brings together perhaps the best of both worlds, where you have the outsourcing benefits and you have the DIY benefits, which are sort of brought together with this online service. And overwhelmingly, we find that people are very pleased with the quickness of turnaround and the convenience of working at your own pace, but particularly being in control of the content. And I think it's especially true when you have some important decisions to make about what and where, especially in DITA, where it might not be as straightforward as some other XML environments. Some real decisions to be made, and you can quickly do that using the rules editor. So that was really just a quick summary. As I would say, this whole sort of presentation that IBM made is available on our website. There's also quite a lot of other supporting information available on our website. Patrick recently wrote a white paper titled "Knowledge is the Key to Intelligent Content Conversion," just giving insight into some of the things we look for when we're trying to automate and optimize the conversion processes. So that's really it as far as the presentation is concerned. We have about 10 minutes now for Q&A, and I'm just going to ask her if she's collected any questions so far.
No, there's no questions at the moment.
So questions. So we'll hang on for maybe a minute or so, and if people would like to raise questions now through using chat and address them to Helen, that would be most welcome. Okay, it doesn't look as though there's anything else for us to address at this point. I hope that means that the presentation's been very comprehensive and address most of the issues that you might have been wondering about. And please address any further questions to migrate@stilo.com, and we'll do our best to get back to you in due course. And if just before signing off, if you could remember that there's a poll to complete before signing, if you would please, we'd appreciate it if you would just spend a couple of minutes in doing that. So thanks very much for your time today, and hope to speak to you again soon.